Today on episode 86, our Marty Booker episode of Typical Chicago Fans, we have Sinkers and Floaters, the TCF Sports Minute. We have our first T-shirt giveaway in a long time, a great interview with comedian Dave Williamson, and a TCF top 3 of throwback jerseys. Let's roll. Hello and welcome to episode 86 of Typical Chicago Fans. It's me, your boy Boomy, on Twitter at BoomyTCF. Make sure you follow the main page at typical_Chicago. Go to Facebook and Instagram, type in Typical Chicago Fans and give us a like and a follow on those pages. Head on over to the YouTube and subscribe there for all of our content in video form. Make sure you subscribe, rate, and review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, wherever you get your podcasts, you can find us there. But make sure you follow the guys that I am joined with tonight. That is Zach at ZAlilia TCF and Matt at schools_01. Today's episode is brought to you by our friends over at 26shirts.com Chicago. Head on over to their website, 26shirts.com/Chicago, to check out the coolest Chicago sports merchandise you can find. They've got everything from t-shirts, hats, flags, hoodies, whatever you need, they have it. Amazing gear, fits great. I love everything I've ever gotten from them, but make sure you use the promo code Typical Chicago Fans at checkout for 15% off your order. If you love the show, love great Chicago merch, love helping out good causes, like I said, 26shirts.com/Chicago. Pick up some great merch. Use the promo code Typical Chicago Fans for 15% off your order. Make sure you check them out. Boys, Week 9 NFL, how we feeling?
Feeling good. Not great, though, after a Packers win. But I'm looking forward to this week. It's a big week. It's a make-or-break week, I think, for the Bears. You can't go out there look bad. You can't get a bad loss. And also, I don't even know who the backup quarterback is. I said Game Boy last night on Twitter. I said Game Boy is going to be the backup quarterback for the Bears. But I think Tyler Bray may also be something with COVID. Trubisky hurt. Nick Foles is known to get hurt. So it is going to be an interesting week for the Bears.
Yeah, I didn't even realize that Bray was involved with, some possible COVID stuff. I saw Cody Whitehair tested positive. But yeah, that'd be crazy to think of. I mean, they play in, a couple days. You got to figure something out here real fast if you're going to have to go to a backup situation, because I don't know if they have anyone on the practice squad, but that's tough.
Well, yeah, they knew they were going to be without Mitch, but also, right. Boys, beautiful weather around here.
It's been a sinker for us a lot lately, and now we're trying
to. I know. I think we bring up the weather every single time. That's going to be our thing. But
it's the Midwesterner in us, man.
Beautiful week. You can't beat this week.
100%. It's beautiful golfing weather, except it gets dark at 4 o'clock.
Oh, I hate that.
Absolutely. Maddie, loving the Expos hat, man. How we feeling this week?
Fantastic. We got Friday night football going. We got Mountain West. It's just it's a glorious thing. Mountain West is a longtime favorite conference of mine. So I've got a soft spot for those teams out west. And we got an ACC game too, Miami and North Carolina State playing. Football's in full swing. That's about all we got anymore. COVID's like ravaging our country. The election's ravaging our country. We all got football though, man. It's just like it's the peace offering down the middle that we got right now.
Well, it's on Wednesday night we got Maction that heals some hearts.
That's right. We had a couple games last night as well, and then so
we got football 7 days a week.
Yeah. Oh, damn near. And, the way the NFL is going, we're probably going to have to start getting some makeup games, it's looking like, too. So, probably have to see some NFL games on Wednesday nights here and there. But, hey, let's hope everybody makes it through. It just sucks right now, man.
For sure. Well, let's jump right into sinkers and floaters. Maddie, I'm going to let you lead us off in sinker this week.
Boys, I'm gonna get a little bit serious for a second. And I know it's not necessarily my normal approach here, but no, I think the election is my sinker this week, and obviously it's been kind of a dumpster fire. I think we can all agree with that. But honestly, all this has done is just kind of shown a light on so much just negativity, all the negative aspects in our society. It's just kind of like put it all on a spotlight. It's kind of become embarrassing in a lot of ways. Just the way people are acting amongst each other, the way people are talking to each other, the way people are, all of it. And like, it just all comes back to like the peaceful transition of power and like the maintenance. If it's a, the maintenance of power, if it's a, a re-election of an incumbent, it's key to like our fabric of what we are as a country. That's democracy at its finest. That's a signal of peace and what's good and what's right. And we got everyday citizens, volunteering their time, effort, in honor of their civic duty, just, counting ballots, organizing all these things as much as they can, doing the best job that they can. They shouldn't be subject to threats and violence in any capacity. It's just like right, left, I don't care who you are anymore. Like, it's like both sides are becoming just so intolerant, and it's just, can we just like move on and like just let's finish this. Let's head in the right direction for once. You know
Absolutely.
what I mean?
Absolutely, Matt. My sinker was division, and not math division, but going along with what you said, it's the division that's happened, obviously, over the years, but the division that this this election has caused between people, and you said it, man. It's people are just fighting left and right, and like there's come to a point where we're never going to agree on everything, but you have to be able to find a common ground, and you can look back, look what happened when George H.W. Bush lost an election as an incumbent in 92, like that wasn't even that long ago, and there was still a peaceful transition of power. Senator McCain, when he lost his election in 2008, there's so many examples that we can look at as to how to handle situations like this. And I just, like you said, man, I want the peacefulness and the kind of the regularity of the world to return, because the division between us is sickening right now.
This will not be a peaceful change of power.
Unfortunately, you're probably right.
I mean, it's already been.
Let's hope it just stays nonviolent, but it's obviously going to be contested. It's obviously going to be fought like tooth, nail, scratched, and in every capacity with evidence. Who knows? Without evidence, nobody knows. Nobody knows anything right now. So that's part of the problem too. Is nobody has any idea of what is actually going on, and all that's in limbo is the American people. And it's really sad to see you flip on the news and like literally, election workers are having to be, protected by people in bulletproof vests and armed guards and things like that just to count ballots. That's not the country we are, dude. That happens on other sides of the world. And,
right. That's stuff that happens. That shouldn't happen in the democratic state. That's like authoritarian government.
There should be a respect for this office on both sides of the aisle. That you're basically calling all these people criminals that are committing treason by accusing people, just everyday citizens, of committing these acts that people are saying they're doing. So I don't know. It's sad to see.
It really is. I was an election judge in my first election. I was able to vote in 2008, and there's not enough money you could pay me to be that right now. Like,
really,
you're saying it's not something I would be willing to volunteer to do. So bless those people that are taking their time, and yeah, they're probably receiving a little bit of a stipend, but they're there for the right reasons. But yeah, man, something's got to change, and we got to find a common ground and get along better than what we are.
Right.
Well, for my sinker, I'm going to go a lot different. My wisdom teeth, because this last week I had another wisdom tooth. Like, I'm trying to just plan the surgery right now. And the second time that COVID has canceled the appointment, I think the first one it was like right at the beginning of all of it. And then now again this last week, it's not like it's just gonna. I mean, I need them out. I mean,
yeah,
they are like, I don't know, going the wrong direction. They hurt all the time, but I cannot catch a break. And I guess it's probably a good thing. I guess it'd been better than having to, like, if I went there and had to like quarantine for going to the dentist. But yeah, my wisdom teeth teeth. I think all 4 of them.
Oh, jeez. Hey man, you give me and Maddie a couple $100 and a pair of pliers. We'll take care of it real quick for you.
I will wait.
That's probably the right bet, man.
Bottle of whiskey too. You're gonna want, dude.
No, I'm good.
Maybe a leather belt to chew on.
I've spent a lot of time in dentist's office over the last probably 16 months, so I feel your pain, man. My thoughts are with you. It sucks. It literally feels like
I always say that when you take 4 years off.
Yeah, 10 years for me.
You went 10 years without going to the dentist?
Yeah, from when I was 20 or 19 to 29. That was dumb. It was not a good decision. So I feel your pain, man. I am with you. I will start with my floater, and that is the television show MXC, Most Extreme Elimination Challenge. That was an integral part of my youth, watching that on what is now like Spike TV or Paramount TV or whatever it's called now. It's the Japanese game show that is voiced over by, I believe, comedians. And it was one of the funniest television shows of my adolescence, and it is now on Amazon Prime Video. I remember a couple years.
Insane.
It is so funny. The voiceovers. Guy Leduc was the one guy's name. Kenny Blankenship, and I cannot remember the other guy's name. But we used to go on YouTube down rabbit holes a couple of years ago. But now it's on Amazon Video, so I will definitely be using that. I
wonder how that came about. Like, how did that show get on there? After all these years.
We're just gonna buy a Japanese TV show and just voice over it. Like that was just so funny. So I know the other night watching the election on Tuesday all day Wednesday. It got to Thursday, or no, it was Wednesday night, and I just needed mindless television. So I turned on King of the Hill. Now that I have MXC, that'll be something I'll use to kind of get away from real life. Maddie just hit a bet, so I can tell you.
You're frozen Boomy. We got
Boomy, and you look like your eyes. I get a picture of this one.
Yeah, this is beautiful.
Dang it!
This one. Yeah, screenshot. Oh, he got
it. No! I have the video.
Oh, what a scammer! What a scammer! Well, you want to do your floater? Or do you want me to do mine?
You do your floater because it'll go right into it.
Well, mine. It's going to be kind of a weird one tonight. I'm going to move the camera a little bit. Mine's going to be fiber internet, because fiber internet's allowing me to do this in high definition without any flaw at all, unlike my satellite company, unlike my previous internet company. So I got 3 football games going on right now, all because of fiber internet and a frozen booming. So that is my floater of the night, fiber optic internet.
Okay. That makes sense now.
My floater is NBA teams that did not play in the bubble. I think it is the quickest turnaround in history. I saw Boomy's favorite person in the world, LeBron James, put that on his Instagram today. I think it's 74 days between the championship and maybe the first game or something like that. So the Bulls are going to be ahead of the game here. They're well rested.
Oh,
new
God.
Coach, new front office. Boys, we're ready to go.
Okay, well, let's just get into the sports minute then, because we got to talk
that's why
NBA.
I want to go last with that.
Because okay, we got December 22nd is when they're starting.
Mm-hmm.
Okay, we got a draft. We've got free agency. We've got
preseason.
Yeah,
I'm excited.
This is going to be
and not to mention COVID protocols that they got to figure out. Are they going to let fans in? How many? What is going to be the
I can't imagine. I can't imagine the way the numbers are going right now that they're going to start packing indoor stadiums. I just can't see that coming.
The United Center. Well, I think that's about impossible.
I can't imagine the city of Chicago, the state of Illinois is going to let that happen.
Soldier Field doesn't have fans right now. I don't think
that's what I'm saying. I totally agree, Zach. You're absolutely right. You hit the nail on the head there.
But I'm excited because we're excited about football right now, but at a point we're going to want a different sport. So then, boom, right before Christmas, we will get the start of the NBA season, and the Bulls will be on their way to an NBA championship.
I'm curious to see,
what are you laughing at, Boomy?
I love it, man. I'm with you.
I know your favorite team, the Lakers, won this year, but
God,
But
So
I
gross.
am excited too. I am excited about this season. Billy Donovan, new energy to this team. I'm excited.
You gotta
And
figure
we're well
there's gonna be.
rested.
You gotta figure there's gonna be some positive. You got Kobe White. He started
It can't
showing
be.
some
I mean,
big
it's
time
got to get better than Jim Boylan. So,
big time signs last year. I don't know. There's at least reason to be optimistic if you're a Bulls fan. I totally agree.
like I said, we still got the draft, which they got the 4th pick, and we have a little free agency. So we'll have to see.
Yeah, I know there's been talk about with the Bulls draft about possibly moving up or down. Do you guys have any preference, or you just want the Bulls to stay where they're at? And any thoughts on that?
There's nobody in this draft, in my opinion, that's like makes
it's not worth it.
I don't think the difference between 1 and 4 is all that much right now.
Wiseman, maybe just because of his height and
could be, but we didn't really see enough. I mean, we didn't see much of him. You know what I mean?
Like, huge question mark there.
He could be a unicorn. You're absolutely right, but it's hard to say that. Whatever other capital you got to give up, if you're clearing some space with it, like hypothetically, I don't even know if this would be possible based on the numbers, but if you're giving up Levine and then and the 4 to get the 1, where you're dumping some salary too, I could get on board with a move like that. You know what I mean? And that has nothing to do with him, but I just mean, like, if you're getting rid of a decent amount of payroll while you're trying to enter free agency, and you can get the number 1 pick. Okay,
but I just hope they don't do too much.
Yeah,
it's not worth risking a lot.
I think you keep adding talent to this roster as best you can. If that means you got to start dealing Markkanen and start dealing Levine and some of these other guys that have been around and just haven't turned. I think you got some with Kobe White. I know I'm a Carolina guy, so that's like my fine whatever. But he showed a lot of signs last year.
At the end of the year, he showed it.
He had no fear. He plays. He's ready for the NBA game.
His rookie year, he had Jim Boylan as his coach.
Yeah. How long were we begging for him to be starting when he was just like, coming in producing off the bench? And
but no, they kept toting out Satoransky. You couldn't find him.
Like what the hell was that? That guy's trash.
He is bad. Not good at basketball. No. In the baseball world, the Boston Red Sox with a nice little Friday morning dump as they rehire Alex Cora after a year, not even a full year, but a season. You
got to give it to them, boys. The Red Sox, there's a craziness going on with this election. Everyone's focused on that. Boom. They hire the guy that they just fired.
Yeah.
I think it's a case of they hired the guy back that they suspended for a year.
Yep.
And didn't have to pay him. Because by firing him,
a good coach,
they could probably get some backdoor way of not paying him for the year, whatever it may be,
or even at least paying him,
or even paying him, and then just saying, hey, thanks for winning us the World Series the year before. We know this is a big black eye. You need to go away for a year. And I mean, Renicky wasn't ever a long-term solution for them anyway. So it's not like this is an ultra shocking move. The players love him. He's a great manager, I think, if he can, at some point the guy served a penalty. It's a lot more than what some of these other players and some of these other executives and some of the other people from the Astros organization have done.
Maddie, on that. I've seen a lot of you can't hire these guys, whatever. You know what? They sat out the year. They took the suspension that none of the players that were also involved in it that did no time, that also got to go to the World Series this year. Like, I think it's a little ridiculous to think that these guys should never be hired again. I understand
this is going to follow them forever too. It's like a black eye on them, or scarlet letter on them forever. You know what I mean? So it's like it's not like
I think it's annoying what they do. It's bad. Like I said, you got to move on. And some guys did steroids and stuff like that. They moved on. Like,
you don't lock them up and throw away the key and just let them rot. Like at some point,
a whole year.
It'd be one thing if there was one person culpable of this whole thing, but there's not. There's one person. So to say that Cora is the one that should fall on the sword for everybody else, I think is a bit ridiculous. You know what I mean? Like
AJ Hinch, it's like, why would Detroit hire him? It's like, dude, he's probably
why wouldn't they? He's an outstanding manager. He's great with young players. So why wouldn't they?
Got caught up in a bad situation, which he may have been a part of, which he may have even started, but he was also one of multiple people that were involved, and also, like I said, was suspended for a whole year.
Totally agree. It's a crap move in what the Astros did. Absolutely.
The reason I kind of go off on that is because I was kind of like when the White Sox were looking at AJ Hinch and stuff, people were like, "Oh, why would you do that?" It's like I know, like that first job back is always going to be
he's
tough.
already been hired.
You know what? Fine, but AJ Hinch, if you want to talk about character, is his character any worse than La Russa's has been?
Yeah.
At the end of the day, La Russa's been tied to cheating with steroids for multiple organizations, with the A's and the Cardinals. So that's just as heavily cheating as
it just isn't as recent.
The science. I understand that.
No, I'm just saying
don't play the morality card.
No, that's what I'm saying though. It's just recency bias.
Right, you're absolutely right. So it's like you can't play the morality card with Hinch and Cora if you're not.
Yeah, you can't cherry pick your
fuck
argument.
that. Get out of here. Come on.
Last story in baseball, the Mets have officially been sold to Steve Cohen, who promptly fired literally everybody, which is hilarious.
He's a genius.
Yes, he is. I don't know what it is, Zach, and I think you might understand. You've been to the stadium. There's something about the Mets that I don't hate.
No,
I don't know. I like the stadium. I like the area.
I don't like getting to the stadium itself.
I agree there.
But it is a nice stadium.
I also like they're kind of the Robin in New York City. So, and I hate the Yankees. So I don't know. I hope
the fans against the front office, and now that can finally go away.
Yeah. Yep. So that was a huge. I believe
a guy who is
the richest owners in baseball.
Yeah.
Instantly richest owner in professional sports, I believe.
You might be. What is he? Is he a real estate guy?
He's like a hedge fund, capital investment kind of guy, I believe.
Wouldn't it be so cool to make enough money you could just buy?
He even already had a statement out for the Mets fans that was already
on your own.
Was already better than everything else that the other people who were in charge before had done in 10 years.
Yeah. Will Ponds, that was a dog shit ownership group. As far as the Mets are concerned, just to go back to what you guys were saying, how you don't really have a deep hatred for them. Growing up, I hated the Mets. They were a big rival for the Cubs in the late 80s and early 90s. So so for me, I hated the Mets. One of my best friends, a listener to the show, Damien, is a diehard Mets fan. I'm sure he's pretty jacked about the Cohen approval on the sale and all that. But Brody Van Wagenen, he's gone after 2 years of trying to start building something, and dealing Jared Kelenic and getting Edwin Diaz back and Robinson Cano and giving up one of the best prospects in baseball is probably going to be your legacy at this point. It's a tough look. It's a really tough look.
Very.
I mean, he got DeGrom done though. He got that deal done too. So you can't forget that either. Does help that he was DeGrom's agent though. Let's not forget the inside track that he had. With him.
Pretty easy to get a deal done with yourself.
Yeah. You know what the guy wants, I think.
He's just sitting on a table and he just keeps jumping side to side, like negotiating.
Well, I want more money.
That's hilarious. We have a T-shirt to give away. Zach, how do we want to go about this? Let's brainstorm this.
Well, I have it right here.
So we have
extra large. So
it's an extra large. Obviously,
unfortunately, I don't fit an extra large right now. I don't talk about it. We're gonna just leave it at that.
You didn't have to tell the people that, Jack. You could have kept that one.
You know what? I want
the listeners
to know.
You're an open book. How do we want to do this? People that share the podcast, share Facebook.
Up to you, Boomy.
What do we want to do?
You're good with these ideas.
All right, so here's the deal. Share any of the podcasts through the end of till Thanksgiving.
Well, let's share this podcast.
All right, share this podcast.
Big one. We got a big guest on here. We got Dave Williamson, comedian, funny guy, awesome interview. I'll be coming up here soon.
Scorching political takes.
Yeah. Show us that you are listening to the podcast, however you do it, if you listen to Apple, Spotify, wherever you get it, just send us a picture of you listening to the podcast. You can scroll over if you want. Just
take a screenshot
of you sharing an episode with your friend on a text message. Boom.
Oh, that might be an automatic winner if we get someone to do that. Share the Facebook post. Send us a screenshot that you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify, wherever you find it. YouTube, just share a
However, you
screenshot,
share
and
this
we'll put it in the
podcast
draw.
with somebody else, and you can
Basically,
prove
do
to
what
us.
Pat Beals does for us.
Yeah, I was gonna say we need to look like Adrian as our
But,
giveaway.
like we said, it's an
correspondent.
extra large, just so you know.
And if you're not an extra large, but you know a Bears fan that is an extra large, Christmas is
Because it says
right around the corner. So you could get a free Christmas
Victory
giveaway.
Monday, Bear shirt. Hopefully, we are celebrating a Victory Monday. And let's have it. What do you want it by? Like sometime by Wednesday, Thursday?
By the time we record the next episode, so probably Friday.
Friday at around 9:00.
Yep, that works. So share the podcast, screenshots, whatever. Show us that you're listening to
86. Episode 86.
The Marty Booker episode, 100 catches.
Either the podcast
Marty Booker, a guy I'd never heard of before today.
Podcast or YouTube video.
God, how young are you?
Was he in the 80s? Was he an 80s guy, Matty?
No, he was not an 80s guy. He was an early 2000s guy.
Oh, well, the picture they put on the Sun Times, he looked like he was 100.
He was not a fast receiver, dude. A big, slow possession receiver, but he catch everything, dude. Hands like stickum gloves, man. He can catch everything.
Oh, I think I remember who you're talking about now.
Yeah. He's a dog shit quarterback, too.
Wrong, because it was an old white guy in the picture, so I was very confused. They must
Marty Booker, definitely not an old white guy.
I know who you're talking about now. And that's definitely why I was confused. But
we got the Tom Waddle episode coming up here next.
Yes, we do. I remember seeing his name on the list. So, yes, we do. Let's throw it to our interview. And we were lucky enough that Dave Williamson, comedian extraordinaire, was able to give us time the other day with me and Zach. Got to talk to him about comedy, life on the road, everything.
He was just about to jump on a tour bus with Bert Kreischer and a few other guys, and they were going to do drive-in movie theater stand-up shows, which is pretty awesome with everything going on.
Like one of the hottest comedians in the game right now. Bert Kreischer is everywhere. He just had a Netflix special, like a month ago, The Cabin, which was insane. But yeah, Dave was awesome.
He was awesome. Like I said, he sat down with us for like an hour or so, like hours before he was getting on this tour bus, and he couldn't have been nicer to us. And it was just an awesome interview. Like I said, go check out all of his stuff, his YouTube, everything. It was a Dave Williamson comedy.
Yes, DaveWilliamsonComedy.com for all of his.
Check him out on
Dave
Twitter.
Williamson
And if you really want to cred check too, go look at his followers list. He's got some names that follow that guy, dude. There's some big names that follow him. So
we were talking about people he had opened for: Lewis Black, Dana Carvey. Like I said, he's on tour right now with Bert Kreischer, and Boomy, you got
his Twitter account's great too. He's hilarious on there.
He's just real nice. He's just a down to earth, super nice guy too. And he also, if you like barbecue and like stuff like that, his page is the right page to be on because he makes some amazing food.
Gained like 4 pounds just looking through those pictures, man. But let's go ahead. Let's throw it to that interview with comedian Dave Williamson right now. Ladies and gentlemen, we have a very special guest we'd like to welcome to the podcast. He's an insanely funny comedian and podcaster who's worked with some of the biggest names in comedy, such as Bert Kreischer, Jim Gaffigan, Jimmy Fallon, and my personal favorite comedian of all time, Lewis Black. He's performed and won more comedy festivals and competitions than I can even count. Follow him on Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube. Head over to DaveWilliamsonComedy.com for everything he's got going on. Ladies and gentlemen, comedian extraordinaire, Dave Williamson. Dave, how are we doing, my man?
Hey, it's me, guys. It's me. Thanks for having me on. Comedy festivals are such a funny thing, man. Like, because comedy normally, and so that they actually can sell tickets and make it interesting, they do it like a competition standpoint, But comedy is not supposed to be subjective. You know what I mean?
Yes.
You're not supposed to like judge one comic versus the other and have a scorecard and whatever. But it just sells tickets, so they all do it. But for me, like I come from a sports background, like, you know, being a sports fan and also playing sports and coaching sports now, that I would get so competitive at those things. And it's so unhealthy. It's so unhealthy with jokes, you know? So it was so funny. Like I think because of that, I got really good at making the finals of almost every comedy festival I've ever been in, because I prepare, I take it seriously, I don't let people get in my head, you know. I like, oh, there's industry here, so there's stakes, and like some comics are like freaking out about that. I'm like, game face on, you know. But on that same token, I think it's made it hard for me to win, man. Because I think I just get too competitive. You have to be loosey goosey with comedy, you know. Like you can't be competing. So it's funny. I've made the finals, but I don't think I've really won many of them.
Oh, you kind of think the competition is kind of the opposite of comedy. You're trying to go out there, have fun with it, and like competition is like you're going against somebody and you're trying to like destroy the other person.
Yeah, no doubt. And I don't know, man. Like I think too, if you take it too seriously, like the goal should be that you end up just having a good showing and getting along with everyone and being easy to work with and having a point of view. If you go up there trying to kill too bad, then you're gonna like fall back on like a hacky jokes that you know work.
Yup.
And you're playing to the crowd instead of playing to the industry. Like, I guess what I mean is, and this is gonna sound like coach speak, sometimes you could lose the competition, but really be the big winner of the festival because you're the guy who ends up getting the most work out of it. You know what I mean? Mm-hmm. So you could win the whole thing by having some hacky jokes that the crowd loved, but the booker might recognize like, oh, that guy who came in third place actually had a point of view. He had jokes I'm going to remember. He connected with the audience, even though he didn't get bigger laughs, you know? So you could be a loser at those festivals and actually be a winner, which I started looking at it like that. I'd go to those festivals and I'd just be like, yeah, I want to do good in the show, but more importantly, I want to have beers with the bookers and get to know them. But if you're a bitch and you're like, I came in second place and I should have come in first and this place is rigged, no one's going to give you work. Who wants to deal with that, you know?
Exactly.
You kind of use it as an interview.
100%.
Yeah,
100%.
Love it. Hey, and one of your albums, you talked about traveling the country in an RV with your wife and your two kids. Do you ever miss that, being out in the RV with the whole family?
Man, that was the best time of my life. And I say that like not just like as hyperbole. Like I had such a blast doing that. And it was a huge risk because when my wife and when she greenlit it and we like started putting it together and I'm like, oh my God, this is happening. We're doing it, right? I was like, man, I think 2 weeks in, I'm going to know whether this was an awesome idea or a terrible idea. This is either going to be like, build the foundation for my family forever, or we're going to be divorced, you know?
Yeah, for sure.
And lucky for me, man, it really ended up being awesome. I have a great wife who's a good sport and always up for adventure. And it really ended up being something that was a positive influence, impact on my family. And I really missed those days. We were supposed to go for 3 months. And then I got into the San Francisco comedy competition, which if you do well, you end up competing in the San Fran area for a month. Mm-hmm. So I made the finals of that. So we were there for a month. So it ended up being 4 months. And then the idea was we were moving from Miami to LA and we were going to work the road on the way. Right. So I booked up all this work and then that festival tacked on the end of it. And then we got into LA. And my wife looked at me and she goes, I'm kind of sad because we're just starting to get really good at this. I don't know if I'm ready to stop traveling yet. So I go, all right. So I actually sold it to Nick Mom, which was a channel that Nickelodeon had at the time. Yep. And I sold it as a web series to them. So we ended up we continued going. So we ended up living in that 25-foot travel trailer for 18 months. We were in it for a year and a half.
Oh my God, that is so cool. And like
that's awesome.
I don't know, like on Instagram, like in TikTok, I've seen so many people that are like moving out of their apartments and traveling the world in RV. You were like ahead of that trend, man.
Dude, we were totally on the front end of that, man. Yeah, it's especially now, like we were like cars didn't have Wi-Fi yet.
Yeah.
And like cell phones were, because I did it in 2012. So everyone had an iPhone yet, but it was like the iPhone like 2, you know, like yeah. It was like the early years of that shit. So it's a lot easier now for people to hop in, go and look up campsites on their phone and work from their laptop with a satellite signal, you know? It was a little harder then, but because of, my job as a comedian, we can do it.
That's so cool,
That's
man.
awesome. I've always, like, as a kid, I always wanted an RV, and that just seems awesome to just travel the world and
18 months.
Like, you just know, like, you're an RV, like I can just pull over at any gas station or something like that, and I can just sleep there.
That was the best part, is that, like, so most gigs, it really was good for me as a comedian too, because I was like headlining at the time, but I was just starting to headline like B rooms. So this is how it happened. I'll tell you the whole story. I was actually at a festival. I was at the World Series of Comedy in Las Vegas, which is like straight up a competition.
Yeah.
And like 400 or 500 people apply to it, and they invite 101 to come to Vegas, and then they whittle it down through rounds after round. And I ended up coming in third place that year. So it was funny because the finals were me and two of my closest friends in comedy. So when all three of us made the finals, we were like, dude, we've already won. Like, like I was going to be happy for any of them that got it, So the way it works was there was a bunch of industry that was there to judge it, because, this guy who was putting it together in Vegas, if he calls up some comedy club owner in Iowa and says, hey man, you want a free weekend in Vegas? All you got to do is show up at these shows and fill out a scorecard, and then you can have the rest of the day and the rest of the night off. Every comedy club booker in the world is going to be like, yeah, we'll take that. So there's all these club bookers that were there. So, I went, I did well. And while I was there, I met a guy who was traveling with his family in an RV. But he was doing it for like 2 weeks, which at the time I was like, 2 weeks, that's a long time, bro. So I won all this work, and my wife and I were at the same time, like, trying to figure out, like, how are we going to make a transition from Miami to LA? So I come home and I go, babe, I got this crazy idea. I go, I just won all this work from this festival. What if I see if I could actually put it together? Do you want to, like, get rid of our house and buy an RV and travel? And she was like, yeah, I'm in. Let's do it. So I started hitting up. Some of the work was only guaranteed for first place. Some of the work was only guaranteed for second place. Some of the work was only guaranteed for third place. So I went ahead and I emailed like all 100 email addresses. And I said, I came in third place. I know you're only offering work to first place, but please consider me if you need a comedian. And also, I'm more of a headliner than an opening act. So, if you have headlining work, that'd be great, which was a little bit of a stretch of the truth. I was barely a headliner at the time, but I knew I could do it. So of those 100 emails, if half of them hit me back, they're like, all right, we'll consider it, but, what, send us your avails. And I go, well, look, if you send it, if you book me this particular weekend in July, then you don't have to give me a hotel. And that was my leverage. Because these comedy clubs, a lot of them at that level, if they could save $200 a weekend on hotels, they'll take it because they're cheap, at that level.
Absolutely.
So they were like, all right, we'll take it. So I was working for like the entry level headlining fee, and I was saving money on hotel, but I was getting my foot in the door. I was being able to travel and work with my family. I went in and crushed it and did a good job. I brought like a flea market of merch with me, so I'd sell merch afterwards. And then I would do shows Thursday through Sunday in whatever city we were in. And then we'd have, 2 or 3 days to kind of cruise, stop at places and check things out. And then I had to be whatever the next city was by the next Thursday.
That is so cool, man.
That's genius way of thinking about it too. Like, this comedian, whatever. But then when you put out no hotel, like that's just another add-on just another reason for them to go in. And then you said you go in and crush it, and then they know you.
Yeah, no, I mean, look, life is all about getting your foot in the door places, just like anything, And when I would go to these festivals too, like you got to pay your own way to these festivals. When you get to the bigger festival, Montreal or whatever, or you're like a famous comedian, then they might pay for your stuff or give you hotel rooms. But when you're just trying to like be seen, it's like being an athlete in the minor league system or a high school. So you got it, being seen or people knowing who you are is like half the battle. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
Like everyone's talented. It's just like standing out from the rest. So instead of emailing link out and spending all this time like trying to get people on the phone or whatever, I just decided to go to these festivals. So when I really made the decision to be a full-time comic, I told my wife, I go, look, it's financially not going to be smart. I go, but I think in the long term it's going to pay off. So that's why, in my bio, I have so many festivals I went to. I applied to all of them. And any of the ones I got in, I went,
Yeah. That is so cool, man. I've been a big stand-up. My mom and dad used to listen to Bill Engvall CDs when I was like, 5 and 6 years old. And like before I could even like count to 10, I had those CDs like memorized. I've been a comedy fan for well over 25 years of my life. So that's so cool to hear how that works out.
And Bill Engvall. I would go. I tweeted at Larry the Cable Guy last night, and he responded. I thought that was kind of cool.
That is very cool.
But I would go out to hunting camps with my dad and all his buddies in Florida, and we'd be out in the middle of the swamp in some hunting camp, and they would have a boombox with Andrew Dice Clay cassettes on it. They would just play it on loop, and I'd see these like men that I like, that I looked up to, who were like, good old boys and real like, serious guys. And I'd sit there, they'd listen to it 5 times and they'd still be laughing at the jokes. And that's when I was like, man, I want to be the guy who makes them laugh and smile,
So kind of going into that, like, were you big in like comedy growing up, and like who were some of your favorite comedians?
Other than Dice or any of those guys your dad listened to?
Well, I mean, stand-up, I wasn't as influenced by stand-up as a kid as many people, other than like, seeing my parents listen to Dice. And I remember my parents went to a Gallagher concert when he was like humongous, they got like front row seats. And, it had the parkas so they could so it wasn't really the comedy though that like influenced me. It was more my parents' reaction to the comedy, I think. But I was really into Saturday Night Live. I loved Saturday Night Live as a kid. And so Dana Carvey was like so like the popular guy when I was like in junior high. So I just thought like his impressions were so funny. So Dana Carvey was a huge influence on me. And then ultimately from being a Dana Carvey fan, I watched his stand-up specials and cracked up. And I got to open for Dana finally about 2 years ago, and that was a cool moment for me. Like I wanted to tell him that story, but I also never want to be like a fanboy,
Right.
So I was just like, oh yeah, it's cool, man. Just another weekend,
What's it, the old line? It's like, work so hard till your heroes become your peers or something like that.
Dude,
that's so cool.
It's got to be tough in comedy too, because you open for probably so many of the guys that you looked up to, like with that, and then you kind of had to like, you don't want to go, you want to probably like try and form a friendship, but you don't want to like fanboy it out.
It's really hard, and sometimes you got to break your own rule. But I always feel like if you aren't the guy who the first 5 seconds you meet somebody, do you want to take the selfie and put it on social media? Is it more important to you to make it seem like you're friends with someone, or would you rather risk not getting that photo but actually becoming friends with that person? Actually having that respect and that mutual, become peers that respect each other. Like the coolest thing to me wasn't that Dana Carvey knew how much I loved him as a kid. What was cool to me is that when I saw him 6 months later, I ran into him in a comic club, that he remembered my name, And I'm like, oh, dude, if I had like fanboyed out, maybe he would have just forgot about me and filed me in with like everyone else who fanboys out about him,
For sure. You've obviously, mentioned some amazing names you've worked with, and some of the ones I mentioned in the intro. Who have been some of your favorites that you got to work with? Obviously, you're working with Bert right now.
Oh, yeah.
I had to mention Lewis Black is my all-time favorite comedian. But what are some of the ones that kind of jump out to you when people mention your favorite comedians you got to work with?
Well, Lewis is obviously, a nice guy. And he was cool to work with him. Lewis actually. So since we've been on the topic of festivals, the very first festival I went to was the Detroit Comedy Festival, and they had him host one of the shows, and the room was sold out. It's in this awesome club in Detroit, and so then he would introduce you, and you'd come out and you'd do your 8-minute set. And since the crowd was great, I had a killer set, and for $20 you could buy your set from the club. So I bought my set from the club, and then I used that video to apply for every other festival. And it was just the perfect video because Lewis Black is introducing you, comes out, shakes your hand, and then, you crush for 8 minutes in this awesome crowd. It was the best. It was the best. It was one of the, it was such a valuable tape to have early in my career. But I think that there's two answers to that. One answer is it's cool to open for people and get to meet people who, you never would have thought you would have, like John Lovitz or someone like that, where I'm like, God, I remember being a kid and seeing him on movies, and now I'm like hanging out talking to him about dogs in a green room. You know what I mean? But also just guys that you end up realizing like, oh, that's what a real comic is, like Ian Bagg, for example. I got to open for Ian Bagg a bunch when I was coming up in Florida, and watching Ian work the room was so interesting. You watch these guys, perform, and you hear their set every single show. It's mostly the same, but Ian, no two shows. And it's also cool because a lot of times you watch comics and the whole time you're like, oh, I wish I had wrote that. Oh, I wish I used to have a joke like that. Now I can't do it. But Ian, I'm like, he works. I don't know if you guys have ever seen him, but he's the best comic that works live, because he works off the cuff so much. And he gives everyone a nickname, and he remembers them, and he's just so fast. And it's not my style, so it's just so fun to watch. Like, oh man, I'm just could be a fan and enjoy the show,
For sure.
So, Ian, I really like. Brian Regan, I've gotten a chance to meet a few times, but I never worked with him. But Brian is like the nicest dude on earth, and he was another guy who was like a hero of mine when I was younger, and just as a young comic too, just was always in awe. He's the only guy that I would ever like pay money to like go watch. Like, I would take my wife when we were dating, and we'd spend $60 to go watch him in a theater. Like, he was the guy that, like, when he came to town, I knew I was going to go see him.
Yeah,
but I don't know, man. There's just been so many. I was really lucky that I was cut my teeth in South Florida, where they had 3 improv comedy clubs. So as an opening act there, I got to work with good comics. Where in some regions you have to work those B rooms and C rooms, and some do a great job of booking. Some just bring in road hacks, and so I've seen guys who are talented comics, but because they came up watching guys who weren't talented, then they didn't know that was where they were supposed to push themselves past,
For sure.
So, but me watching, Norm Macdonald come in one week, and Ian Bagg come in the next week, and Steve Byrne, and guys like Bert Kreischer, and every week you got those kind of guys, Sebastian Maniscalco and Bill Burr, when nobody knew who either of those dudes were. I was emceeing at the Improv, and I got to watch them, or I just popped down and would sit in the back of the room and watch them. And that's when, nobody knew who they were. And now they sell out Madison Garden, and it's for a reason. It's because they're good at comedy.
Fun fact, me and Sebastian graduated from the same university.
Oh, no shit.
Yeah,
Where?
he went to NIU up in DeKalb. Right. Yeah.
Well, that's awesome.
I didn't know that. They sent out like an alumni letter when he had that special, and I was like, I mean, he's quite a bit older than me, but I'm like, get out of here. I had no idea.
That's cool.
Yeah.
We all know, like, the road, especially to being a comedian, is not easy. What were some of the, like, biggest hurdles that you had to go through? And, like, would you have done anything different?
Man, I mean, I think you need to be patient. I think a lot of people quit their day job too soon. There's nothing wrong with having a day job, and it takes the pressure off of just, which shows you can and can't do, because you don't want to just be like, oh shoot, I got this gig, because just take the gigs that are going to make you a better comic. And I don't know, what would I have done different? I have to think about that.
Yeah, no worries.
I would have paid more attention to how to edit video and how to be better on social media and things like that. I don't know if that's just generational, but I think that there's definitely a business side of comedy apart from just being good at comedy. But if you at least just try to be good at comedy and be a cool person and hang around, then you'll catch up to all that stuff. You could fast track it by being a YouTube star. Doesn't necessarily mean you're going to end up having the career you want to have, though,
Right, for sure. I think it's one of those, like you said, people quitting their day jobs. Like, that's the great thing about comedy, is that so much of it happens, outside of regular working hours, and you can.
It seems like most comedians, it's a hobby at first, in a way, because it's so hard to make it your career right away.
It if you don't enjoy it, or if it's not like a hobby and something you enjoy doing, then you'll drive yourself. It's not a smart plan to be like, I'm going to get into comedy for the money, because very few people end up making money at it. And it is a grind and a struggle to pay your bills doing it. But if you love doing it and it's what you want to do with your life, then who cares, you know?
Exactly.
I mean, we can all come up with all the cliches and sports cliche analogies of, do what you love and you won't work a day, or, if you play a sport you love, then practice feels like, fun, all that kind of stuff. But
Yeah, definitely. You talk a lot about traveling and being on the road. How has COVID in the era that we're living in affected you guys traveling and getting out and being able to, because you weren't able to do shows for what, 3 months?
yeah, at least.
If not more.
Yeah, so I was traveling, Bert a lot in January and February. I had a few of my own dates, but it was mostly stuff with Bert, January and February. And then when this shit happened in March and we had to shut it down, we were shut down, the end of March, April, May. And then I think it was sometime in June that we took that first little test run to go do a couple drive-in movie theaters. And I mean, the biggest difference, other than the fact we're playing at drive-in movie theaters instead of theaters or comedy clubs, is just the fact that we stay isolated. Bert's so awesome about wanting to hang out with his fans. And, I'm kind of like that too, man. I really like the reason why I ended up loving comedy as a passion was I was in the car business before. And, my family's been in the car business for generations. And I felt like I could go to work and I could spend all day in an office toiling away. And yes, I liked it a lot. Like, there was a lot of adrenaline rushes of getting a sale, or giving an employee like a great place to work, and building bonds, like all that stuff's there. But more often than not, if someone came and knocked on your door, it's because they were upset, you know? So they're coming to bitch or complain, or, tell you what you were doing wrong, instead of saying, hey, thanks for establishing a good family business for the past several generations that treats people right. You know what I'm saying? Then I would, at the end of my shift, I would change my shirt in my office and I get in my car and I'd haul ass and I would go to the comedy club to MC, and 300 people after the show couldn't wait to shake our hand and say, hey man, you really made my day. Thank you so much for doing something I like doing. You know what I mean? Yeah. And I go, that sounds like a way I want to spend my life, So I have a lot of the same philosophy as Bert, and Bert's so awesome at this that even if he's tired, even if he just did 2 shows, he does everything he can to go out and have a beer with the fans after the show. He knows, or he stands there in a meet and greet line, takes a picture with all of them after a comedy club, So that's the biggest difference, is that we can't mingle,
Yeah.
We go and we do our shows, and then we got to go straight back to the bus. We have to stay isolated. And, if we get sick, then the rest of the tour gets called off. So we just can't take any chances.
Right.
But before, man, we would go, we'd do the show. He'd do pictures with everyone. He would tweet out or go on Instagram story and say, we're going to whatever bar. Bunch of fans would meet us at that bar. He'd take pictures of people there. We'd let people buy us beers. We'd tell stories, really make people feel appreciated. And that was one of the coolest things. And I think that's the biggest difference.
Yeah, that's what I was telling. We went and saw this a comedian. He works at Barstool, and he was playing at Pheasant Run. And we went up there, and he, after the show, he even just got on. He said, "Hey, we're going to the bar, across the lobby." And we went over there and had beers with him for a couple hours, and it makes that personal connection, and people, like you said, you might make someone's day just by sitting down and talking to them for 30 seconds or having a beer with them.
Was that Sean Latham or Tom?
That was Sean Latham.
Sean?
Yeah.
Yeah, those are good guys.
Yeah, he was funny, man, and he was a really good time at the bar. Really good. Probably like Bert gets to be, I would imagine.
Yeah.
Is social media a good or bad thing for comedians? And what I mean that is, like, how Twitter and Facebook and the comments can get, people take jokes so differently and just love to get in the replies, the comments, or whatever. Sometimes is it hard to go between being a comedian and trying to go out on social media and be funny?
So I'm gonna sound like an old man, like a curmudgeon talking about but I think social media, I think Bert, once again, is a good example of using social media in a positive way. And like, he's a promotion machine, but he doesn't do it in a gross way. He does it in a creative way where it's like, oh man, that's such a funny video. And at the same time, he's tongue in cheek plugging his dates, you know, and he also gives people a real peek inside his life, you know, so people really feel like they know him and it's authentic, you know. But I think the gross part of social media is and I think the best example I could think of is like when I was coming up. So when I was like an open micer and then started emceeing and I was kind of at those beginning stages, we didn't have social, like if you post something on social media, you got like 3 likes, right? Like a lot of people weren't on it. But then like kind of I would say the generation after me a few years, that's when Facebook was blowing up. Like when like Facebook was around when I was coming up, you know. So when Facebook was first kind of blowing up, I thought it was a real detriment to a lot of those comics who were coming up because you know they would write like just got a standing ovation at the Miami Improv during the open mic contest, and then all their relatives or their friends would be like, "Oh, you were always the funniest one in our family," and "Oh man, I knew you'd do it," and it was fake praise, you know. It was too easy for them to get praise without actually earning it. You know what I mean? Whereas I felt like it helped me become a better comic where if I said some shit like that out loud to one of my buddies, like, hey man, I got a standing ovation at the Miami Improv last night, my buddy Forrest Shaw would say, no, you didn't, bro. That doesn't happen. Nobody gets standing ovations at the Miami Improv. Oh, you're full of shit. Like, you know, I heard it was terrible last night, you know, work harder on jokes and that's how you're going to get your validation. You know what I mean? Definitely. So I just feel like it gave people false sense of worth, which is dangerous.
Sure. And like obviously with like the current climate we live in here, like has it been more difficult recently to, you know, almost tiptoe those political correct lines for comedians, or is it you just, like I know when, you know, someone says, oh, this is controversial, like, yeah, that's in a different setting. It's comedy, like it's meant to be as a joke. Like, is it more difficult, less difficult, same as it's always been to kind of tiptoe those lines?
Oh, the last 3 or 4 years have definitely been hard for. It was so funny because everyone was like, "Oh, you comedians must be glad that Trump won. Like, he's going to give you a lot of material." You know, like even Trump supporters were saying that because they were like, "He's a wacky dude. Like, buckle up, have fun with it." And then like a year later, they're like, "Don't make fun of Trump." You know?
Yeah.
But yeah, I mean, my act's not really political, anyways, so it didn't affect me as much. And you know, maybe it was even an opportunity for me to like, you know, because I do talk a little bit in my act now about like people being too sensitive and you know, kind of being positive and appreciating things in life. Like I do talk about some of that coach shit, some of that same like platitude stuff that I have from my coaching DNA. I talk about in my act. So I do think that people appreciate that and they take it to heart more now than they might not have if we didn't have such a polarizing political climate. But I do think for political comics, it's definitely tougher. Like I had a joke about owning a handgun, and 5 or 6 years ago, that was like, you know, one of my best bits I'd ever written. It was like it crushed everywhere. It was a unique spin on owning a handgun. I could not do that same bit now.
I was listening to it today and I was like, this is such a good bit, but I could see how so many people would take this the wrong way.
That's TV shows, old TV shows. You look back and you're like, this can't happen now.
Oh, yeah. That I watched Flight of the Navigator on Disney Plus with my kids. I go, you guys are going to, this is like a movie from my childhood. You're going to love it. I go, it's a little hokey because it's Disney and it's a kid's movie, but I'm like, you guys are going to like it. And then we turned it on and the first minute, one of the kids looks at his brother and goes, shut up, retard. And I go, oh, you guys can't say that. You guys can't say that. Like, you know, exactly. Like, Dad, I thought you said this would be hokey. So
not dropping hard R words out here.
Yeah. Hey, look, man, things are always going to change in the world. You're always going to have to adjust to different like areas of the country or different types of gigs, but you just got to be strong enough to read your audience. And, you know, if the only way you can be funny is by being politically shocking, or if the only way you can be funny is by being totally raunchy, then maybe you're not good enough for certain things, you know, just find your niche and stick with that. But You know, you're not like an overall great comic, I guess, if you can't adjust a little bit. Or nothing wrong with being unapologetic and just being you and letting your fans find you, kind of like Doug Stanhope, you know?
Mm-hmm. Outside of comedy, what do you like? I know I listened to one of your podcasts, you like to golf and stuff like that. What do you like to do outside of comedy?
Well, I mean, I was telling you guys before we started recording, I coach high school water polo. I have a water polo podcast with Tony Azevedo, who's like the Michael Jordan of USA water polo. He's been to 5 Olympics. You know, he's been like one of the best players in the world since he was 18 years old, and he just retired. So now I talked him into doing a podcast. You know, I love sports. I'm a big sports fan. So either coaching, playing, or watching sports. Yeah, golf is definitely something I wish I was better at, but I really enjoy. And now my kids, I have a 10-year-old and a 12-year-old, and they're at the age, so it's fun to go watch them play sports. And I coach one of my kids in water polo. I go watch a shit ton of soccer games. I take them surfing, you know, stuff like that, or I take them to play golf. So, you know, being a dad is definitely up there. And then barbecue is the other thing. I have a barbecue podcast too. So my life is you know, coaching water polo and sports, comedy, and barbecue. And then my family's kind of intertwined between those 3 things. That's literally the triangle of Dave Williamson's life right there.
That's awesome.
We love barbecue, and I was listening to Meet Dave.
Yeah.
That food, oh my, everything just looks amazing. I love barbecue.
So my podcast is a huge scam, bro. What I do is when I go, well, first of all, I decided to do it because I didn't have a podcast at the time. And I'm like, I should get another podcast going. It's been a while since I've had a podcast. And I go to the comedy club here in LA, and I go hang out. And normally you have the same conversations over and over again. You run into some friend you haven't seen in a while. They're like, dude, you going up tonight? No, I just came to hang out. Oh, cool. Yeah, I went up earlier. How was the crowd? Crowd was good. You on the road? Yeah, I got gigs next week. And you just talk comedy, right?
Yeah.
Well, I started noticing I'd show up, talk about hobbies. Like just barbecue was just my hobby that just like has blown up into like my identity now, you know? So I go to the club to hang out. And the first thing anyone wants to talk to me about is, dude, I saw those ribs that you put on Instagram yesterday. How do you cook those? When can I come over? How long does it take? Where do you buy them from? You know, like that's all anyone wants. And I'm like, if people want to hear me talk barbecue, I should just do a podcast and talk barbecue. This is why it's a scam. What I started doing was I'd go on the road, and since I was on the road, you know, use that as an opportunity to reach out and record an episode. So I'd reach out to whoever the best barbecue guy was in Chicago or, you know, Charlotte or wherever I was, Boston. And I'd message him and I'd say, hey, man, I'm a comedian. I'm in town. If you want tickets to the show, I'd love to have you as a guest. But I'd really like to come grab some lunch and talk to you about barbecue for my podcast. You know, comedians are all jaded to doing podcasts by now. You know, like comedians have been doing comedy podcasts for over a decade now. So they're like, oh, another podcast. But barbecue guys, a lot of people don't show them love. So they're like, oh, you want to talk about my barbecue? I'd love to talk barbecue with you. So I'd show up. I'd get my lunch for free because they just want to, like, you know, treat me as a guest at that point. Yeah. I'd sit there and I'd shoot the shit with these guys that I look up to because pitmasters are truly, we were talking earlier about not being starstruck. I don't get starstruck with comedians, but pitmasters are my heroes, right? I really look up to them. So I get to sit and I talk to them for an hour. I would have been eating lunch by myself half the time on the road. So now I get somebody. And then they normally load me up with another tray. If I happen to be with Bird or with other comedian, they'd be like, take this back to the tour bus. And I'm like, man, this formula really works.
That's a hell of a scam. I love it. That's genius.
And when I was in Chicago, we were working the Chicago theater, and I Googled barbecue places in Chicago. And one of the top search results was a place called, I think it's just called Q. Q? I think it's just called Q.
I think I've heard of that.
Yeah. So I looked it up, and the guy who owns the restaurant is Chef Art Smith, who was Oprah's personal chef for like 10 years. He's cooked for the Obamas. He's toured with Michelle Obama doing stage shows. He's been on every, TV show, New York bestseller. The guy's, really well known. So I messaged him on Instagram. hey, I'm opening up for a comedian named Bert Kreischer at the Chicago Theater. I'd love to come down, interview, and try some of your barbecue if that's cool. Guy writes me back, says, I live in Florida actually, but I happen to be flying into Chicago right now to meet with some people. If you want to meet me before them, come down to the restaurant at 6:00. Done. I go down, I start researching who the guy is. I'm like, holy shit, this guy's like really famous.
Yeah.
Well, I go down and I have dinner with Art Smith. We end up hitting it off. We're still buddies. You know, I text him every now and then. And, you know, just he gave me like $200 worth of barbecue to take back to the bus, the Burt and everything. And I'm like, dude, it's just such an awesome way to connect with people and share a passion, I guess, you know?
Well, it goes back to what you're saying about even find your niche. And it sounds like you've done a great job at finding your niche in the barbecue community.
Oh, dude. And it's fun for me how it intertwines, you know, like I coach high school, like water polo, like I said, and everyone knows that like for our home tournament, I'm going to cook pulled pork sandwiches and sell them for our fundraiser, you know? And the kids know at the end of the year, like they talk me into like cooking ribs and bringing them in. And, you know, it's like how we connect. And same, like I was telling you with comedy, it's how we connect. So it's for me, it's fun when the worlds all collide.
100%.
And it's a good way to get asked back on tours and stuff. Like, oh, this the guy who likes to make the food.
Dude, absolutely.
That's just like you said. You always need that guy. Always want that guy that can just make just amazing food. Because a guy like me, I cannot cook at all, and that just a guy that could. Oh, that's because the food I always see on Bert's Instagram story. Sometimes the food that you make, it looks amazing.
It's getting late here. Zach's gonna have to eat again tonight. Just thinking about all the food that we're talking about.
Yeah, man. No, I've definitely made myself. You know, there's a lot of funny people out there, so Bert could take a lot of people on tour with him. You know, but I've definitely made myself a little, you know, more valuable by being able to throw a brisket in a travel smoker on a loading dock outside of a theater and pull off, you know, some amazing brisket in difficult conditions that we could chow down on. And even more so importantly now, that's one of the things that's changed a lot with COVID as well, is normally we would do 3 or 4 days of touring and then we would fly home and maybe I'd cook once or twice just for fun while we were there. Well, now we're trying to avoid restaurants and we have to be out on tour for like 3 weeks at a time because we don't want to fly back and forth. So you can only eat out so much and not like, you know, be unhealthy. So now we're cooking every day. We're making salads. We're cooking, you know, asparagus in a cast iron skillet. I build these like makeshift grills and I'm cooking burgers or steaks or beef ribs or pork ribs or pulled pork or brisket in the smoker. And we're just cooking every day now, you know?
That's so cool.
That's
yeah,
awesome.
Like you said, there's a good amount of comedians Bert could get his hands on, but none that can make a brisket in a parking lot, I would assume.
Dude, we were in San Antonio 2 weeks ago, and the show was actually not at a drive-in movie theater. It was at the San Antonio Spurs arena.
Mhm.
So like the concourse, like the courtyard that you know normally would like be butted up against the arena, they put 100 picnic tables out there and socially distanced. So you would have to buy a picnic table. So you would only be sitting with people in your like quarantine circle, right?
Mhm.
And then they built a big, awesome stage. And so that's where we performed. So we had the San Antonio Spurs arena, the courtyard with this awesome crowd, the stage, the tour bus, and then me right here next to the tour bus behind the stage. I cooked a 25-pound Wagyu Kobe master beef, master Kobe, score 9, which is the highest score from Australia. Brisket. It barely fit into the travel smoker. And it was maybe the best brisket I've ever cooked in my career as a pitmaster here. I mean, it came out awesome.
Oh,
and
my God.
you know, it was definitely a fun night of just being like this like iconic hunk of beef. It was a $250 hunk of beef that, you know, and that's with my discount that I get. And just like seeing the Spurs arena right there with like the limelight. And you know, the other thing, since it was a sports podcast, what we've gotten into and talking about that night reminds me because we played until about 3 a.m. that night. We got into pickleball.
Oh,
Yeah,
pickleball's great.
I've seen that.
We play it in PE with the kids all the time.
Well, I'd love to know the real rules if you want to ever teach me.
I don't think anybody knows the real rules, man.
because we make it up as we go. But we bought a pickleball net at a sporting goods store and some rackets, and now we just set it up wherever we're at. Oh, we play almost every day, and we'll either play during the day or we'll play at night after our show for Ron to show up and pull the bus out, and we just draw lines on the ground with chalk, and we just go to town. $50 a game, just go, go, go.
That's so cool.
You say like you missed the aspect of going out and stuff, but it seems like you guys are like you're all good friends and stuff. That seems like you guys are just coming together more. And like you said, you can't go out.
And you're never going to get those kinds of opportunities like that again. You know, you're creating memories of something that is literally never going to happen.
Yeah, it's a blast, dude, for sure. Dude, I thought this is crazy. I'm not saying this to brag. I'm just saying it for context because I think it's fucking nuts. But, you know, because of Bert, you know, I've been able to work during this. If it wasn't for Bert having this idea and being who he is and in the position in his career to implement it, there's no way I'd be, you know, performing right now. But I added up the shows, and I've done a few more shows than Bert has, because I did another show here in LA that the Irvine Improv put on, and there was a couple nights on tour that I performed, and then lightning hit, so then Bert never got to perform that night. So I'm a few sets ahead of Bert in 2020. I love it. So with that said, there's a chance that I've done more live sets in front of an audience than any other comedian in 2020 in the world.
That's amazing. You got to get
about a stat, dude. That's a stat right there.
That is 100%. That's got to go on a plaque in the office or something, man. That's great. Is there like, you said you guys are still, you know, you're getting ready to head out. Are you doing more things like this, like you said in San Antonio, doing the outside stuff still? Is that what the plan is here?
So we only have a couple more dates. We're doing San Fran and another little area up around San Fran this weekend, and then we have like one random like Reno gig and a San Diego gig. And I think those are like kind of alternate venues. I think one of them's actually a theater at a casino, but they're like trying it out to see if they can like socially distance the people, you know. And then I think the others are kind of alternate venues too. So yeah, and then I think because of winter and because we've played every market, I think that Bert's shutting it down touring wise anyways for a couple months until the summer.
For sure. Well, before we let you go, like I said, I was listening to some of your albums. I got a couple follow-ups. Have you taken your son to any more Miami University games since his Wake Forest incident?
My son, one of my favorite things was taking him. My oldest son really loves sports. My younger son's into, you know, more like fishing and stuff like that, you know. But my older son loves team sports and being a fan. So the bit you're alluding to, that's, you know, on the subject of like trying to make it as a comedian, this is actually a good tale that's got a little bit of a message to it. Because I remember that day, and I don't tell this part in the story, but I was like, man, I got some big shows coming up. I got to sit down and write some new jokes. And I sat on my computer and I stared at the computer screen and I couldn't come up with shit, right? And then my uncle called me. My uncle had University of Miami basketball tickets, and we were living in Miami at the time, and my father-in-law happened to be visiting. So my uncle called me up and said, hey, do you want to take your father-in-law to University of Miami game? I got some really good tickets. I go, you know what? I'm not doing anything by writing anyway, so yeah, let me just go. So I took the tickets. My son was like 5 or 6 or something at the time, right? And I took him and his buddy and my father-in-law to the UM game, and they were playing Wake Forest. And the way the bit goes is when we'd watch sports with my son, the way he would be to follow it is I'd have to tell him, like, the guys in this color jerseys are the good guys, and that color jerseys are the bad guys. And he's like, got it, good guys, bad guys, good guys, bad guys. So we're sitting there watching the game, and Wake Forest was wearing their all black road jerseys. And my son stands up on his chair and yells, we don't like the black guys. And I'm telling you, you can hear a pin drop in that arena. Like, he said it in one of those moments when, like, you know, when like everyone was quiet. And so I had a back and forth with him about it, like, you know, trying to teach him not to say things that sound racist, you know. And but you know, it's a real life thing that happened, and then you exaggerate it and you turn it into a bit. And I go, man, if I had sat home and stared at my computer screen, I would have never come up with something as real and as unique as what happened to me in real life by just going out and living real life and paying attention while I was doing it, you know?
Absolutely. Sometimes life just writes those jokes for you, you know, instead of.
That's what comedy seems like, is you're just living life and you're just telling the story of it.
Oh, dude, I have so many sports related funny stories from growing up in Miami too that I haven't even put on stage yet, but definitely could be bits easy enough. My best friend was the Miami Heat mascot, Bernie.
Mm.
And so he used to get us free tickets to go all the time. So, you know, I was best friends with his girlfriend at the time too. And so he called us up one time and goes, "Hey, do you guys want to come to the game tonight?" We go, "Yeah." And it was happened to be like around Halloween, right? So everyone was dressing up to go to the game. So my parents had just come back from a trip a few months earlier in like you know, Europe, or no, not, I'm sorry, not Europe, like Egypt or somewhere in the Middle East. I don't know, remember they went, but my mom bought like this authentic like headdress and a robe from there, whatever. So we needed to come up with some last minute uh Halloween costumes. So I told my friend Kristen, I go, "Oh, my mom just got these. Let's wear these." So we wore them. She had like this like, you know, veil thing or whatever. So we go. Well, what I didn't think about was this was October, the October after September 11th. So it was like a month and a half after September 11th happened, you know? So we're there, and the people were so ignorant at the time. They didn't know the difference between like wearing like Egyptian garb and Middle Eastern garb.
Yeah.
So these idiots were like, dude, we got like shit thrown at us, and people were like, "You
Oh
think
my
that's funny,
God.
boy, dressing up like that?" You know, like disrespected America. I'm like, no, I swear to God, it's not what I didn't do this on purpose. You know what I mean?
Oh my God. I never even thought of that. That is wild. Last one before we let you go. Do you ever miss the car dealership?
I mean, I miss being a part of a family business, and I do miss business in general. You know, the adrenaline rush of making a deal, when you can make a good deal for the dealership and also make a customer very happy in the same time, impacting someone's life, either whether it's as a manager and giving your, you know, it's a lot like coaching. You do the coaching meetings on Friday and you pump up your sales staff, and I miss that stuff. But I'm not a big car guy. I don't miss the cars like specifically. And I've found ways in comedy to exercise that part of my brain. So like I produce a comedy festival here in El Segundo.
Mhm.
You know, so every year the Gundo Comedy Festival, I put on a little comedy fest, and you know, it's the same you know, mental exercises that you do when you're delegating in trying to pump up a team and customer service and, you know, pushing yourself every year. It's all those same lessons that I learned in the car business. So, you know, that's the part I miss, is the people part of it, and I get that in other ways now.
For sure. And last question, being you're from Miami, will the U ever be back?
Oh man, yes, they will. You will
I
be
love
back.
the confidence.
I think I like our offensive coordinator. It's tougher now. It's tougher
Yes,
because
100%.
the reason why the U was so great back then is because maybe other than a pocket in Texas, South Florida was the richest bed for high school talent coming up. Right? I played high school football. I quit after my sophomore year because I got tired of getting the shit beat out of me by these all-American dudes, even on my own team. You know what I'm talking about? Like in practice. So I switched to water polo, where it was a physical sport, but the water's a little bit more, you know, of a level playing ground for a slow guy like me. But you know, it was harder to recruit out of your area back then. So, you know, University of Miami, you got Jimmy Johnson in there, and you know, who knew how to like really attract that home talent. Your family could watch you play on TV super easy, or watch you play on the internet, or you know, hop in a jet and go to Oregon, or you see the Oregon Ducks with their awesome uniforms, and as a kid you go, I want to go play for them, instead of being a kid growing up in the neighborhood seeing like. So it's tougher, but they have an amazing legacy. They have an amazing alumni base. It's a great university. It's a private school. So, you know, the thing that's holding us back right now is that we don't have a stadium that's ours. We play in the Dolphins Stadium, and it's not a college atmosphere, and I think that hurts them. The Orange Bowl was incredible. It was a piece of shit that you felt like it was going to fall apart any moment while you were there watching a game, but it was magic. Teams would go in there and they would shit their pants at the level of noise, and people would stomp their feet, and the whole stadium sounded like it was going to fall apart. So it was a true home field. I remember going to many games when we had a 58 game home winning streak that was a record at the time, and it was we could not get beat. It was incredible.
Didn't matter who it was, man. That's one of my all-time favorite 30 for 30s was the one on the U. And I'm a Florida Gator fan, and I still love that. So
awesome documentary. Billy Corbin did that documentary. He's a great dude who's comes out to lots of comedy shows. He's a big supporter of comedians, and he did the U2, Cocaine Cowboys, and he just did a new one about 538 votes, or I think it's called, about the Bush and Gore election. And anything with Billy Corbin, you guys should watch, man. He's an awesome documentarian.
Absolutely. I'd love it. I'm going to have to check those out.
He did one about steroids. I can't remember what it's called, too, with Alex Rodriguez and the steroid scandal.
The Balto ring.
Yeah. That's another good one for sports fans to watch.
That's definitely going to make it to my list. But, Dave, thank you so much for joining us. It was an absolute pleasure. Best of luck on the road. Make sure you find Dave at DaveWilliamsonComedy.com, Facebook, Twitter, Instagram, YouTube, literally everywhere. Spotify. I'm sure you got stuff on iTunes. I'm a Spotify guy, so. Yeah,
at Dave W Comedy is my Instagram. And I've got 2 albums out. My most recent one is here it is. It's called Trying My Hardest. It's got a Miami Vice looking cover on it, and this is the one that's got that Miami Heat story on it. And I got a lot more actual sports stories that we could talk next time we get together, guys. So I'll come back on another time, and I'll tell you, now that we got all the getting to know Dave stuff out of the way, I could go an hour telling you just funny sports stories for sure.
Cannot wait. But everybody, make sure you check out Dave Williamson Comedy, all of his socials. Check out his albums. Trust me, I listened to him this week. You're going to love him. Make sure you check him out. Dave, thank you so much for coming on, man.
Thank you.
You got it, guys. Anytime. Appreciate you asking me.
Thanks again to Dave Williamson for coming on the podcast. Make sure you check out all of his social medias. Head out to www.davewilliamsoncomedy.com for all of his socials, all of his work. Make sure you check him out. He was gracious enough to come onto the podcast with us this week. We will definitely be having Dave back on to talk about his Miami days. So that was awesome. Thanks again to Dave Williamson. Boys, let's jump in, finish up now. We got the top 3. This might be my favorite top 3 of all time. I am a big jersey guy. I love throwback jerseys. So we are going to do the TCF top 3 of throwback jerseys. Does anybody want to start?
I'll go first because I think these are the coolest jerseys. The old school Orlando Magic jerseys, like the Shaquille O'Neal jerseys, those are awesome.
I got one right over there.
They got the pinstripes down the middle. Oh, it's beautiful.
I have actually the black one with the white pinstripes, and it's a Tracy McGrady one from his very early years in the NBA. That is one of my all-time favorites. That's a great pick, Zach. And then when they go with the blue as another road color for those are really, really nice too. That's a great choice.
I love those.
I don't think I ever go second. I'll go second here. Mine is like the late 90s Atlanta Hawks jersey that has the spread out.
Oh, yeah.
The wings on it right below where it says Hawks. That's kind of one of my white whales right now that I'm trying to get a good price on. I want the Dikembe Mutombo edition of it, or was it Sharif Abdul-Rahim that played for them at that time? Either one of those, that is on the top of my list. It might not be the best jersey, but it's the one I'm kind of hunting right now, and they're not the easiest ones to find. Matt, I know you got some good ones.
Matty, you're muted.
You're muted.
My bad. I pulled a boomy.
I was like, that's one of those times it's like, what's wrong with my ears? What's going on with my ears?
I started like looking around at my computer screen. I'm like, what's going on?
That's one of those times you start clapping. You're like, do I hear something?
Well, I tried like, when I listen back to episodes and stuff, and like I'll catch myself taking a drink of like my water, whatever it is, and like I forget to mute it. It's like you sound like an absolute psychopath when you're drinking something out of the mic.
I'm nervous.
You know what I mean?
Something's happened to Boomy, something's happened to Matt, and I feel like
You're up next, buddy.
my computer's just gonna turn off.
All right, so that's all it was. My bad. All right, first one. I'm gonna go with the late '80s, early '90s Seattle SuperSonics, the whites.
That was on
The
my
whites
list.
were sick. It's got the arched Sonics across the chest.
Yep.
The logo on the shorts is absolutely dynamite. The Seattle skyline with the half basketball, absolute electric logo. Great color scheme. Retired organization at this point. Obviously coming back soon. It sounds like. Got to bring back that uni, that jersey, that logo.
Are you talking about before they added the red into it and kind of modernized it in like the mid-90s?
Yes.
Those are good too.
94 was the last year, I believe, that they used them when they lost to Denver. They lost to Denver in the first round. Game 5, Dikembe Mutombo was holding the ball, laying in the paint after they upset the 1 seed Seattle SuperSonics. I believe that was the last year they wore that uni. It was late 80s to 94, I think. Sean Kemp, Gary Payton, great organization, great players. Absolute fire unis. My other one, are we doing snake draft?
Yep.
Okay.
Perfect.
I'm going to go, staying up north, I'm going to go a little bit further north, though, and a lot further east, though, is the Montreal Expos. The whites that they had with that, just the beautiful logo.
Baby.
This
I love
logo
it
right here on the white uni was just absolute electric, just smoking hot unis. Another one where the logo just pops. It's just it's one that just stands out whenever you see it.
Great
I wish that logo was still around. I wish like the Nationals would have kept it.
Definitely.
I don't know how the M would have worked for Nationals, but
they could have figured something out. That's a great choice, Maddie. My 2 pick.
They could have been the Nationals.
There you go.
You got a comedian on. I'm freaking becoming one.
Everybody's a comedian. I'm going to stay in the basketball world. Same era, mid-90s. Those teal Vancouver Grizzlies. Those are my favorite with the I don't even know what you'd call it, but like the design on the shoulders, the Mike Bibby, Brian Reeves era, the teal ones that I think they kept a couple years when they were in Memphis, but those are, I have one. I love it. It's one of my favorites. I can't say enough about those teal ones. Those are up there.
Love it. I'm going football, boys. San Diego Chargers powder blues. I think those are
got awesome. One of those too. Those are great. The junior, like the late '90s junior Seau when they would.
With Daniel Tomlinson's, like that's awesome.
That's a really good choice in the football realm, Zach.
I think it. Oh yeah, I get another one. The retro, Toronto Raptors, like the Vince Carter days. Those are awesome. Like with the dinosaur on there. That is, I guess a raptor, but that is awesome. Those are awesome.
Is a very good one.
I just think the color scheme is cool on those too.
Those purple and blacks.
Yeah, I think it's just
those are great.
And
those are also ones that, like, even the white one, the home uniform, is a good throwback too.
I feel like they wear them a lot though nowadays.
Yeah, they've definitely brought those back, and I believe they have a court that matches it that they kind of swap in and out. I know most of mine come from the mid to late 90s, early 2000s. I'm going to stay there for my 3rd pick. I could probably go about 10, 15 deep on these, but I'm going to go with those early 90s Anaheim Mighty Duck uniforms, the ones that you saw.
That was on my honorable mention.
Okay,
the hockey mask on like Donald Duck's face, basically.
Yes, those are great. Yeah. I love those. And obviously, growing up watching Mighty Ducks, the movies, when they ditch the USA uniforms and put those on, and you're like, oh man, or not the USA uniforms, the academy they were at, and went with
you get me an Adam Banks Ducks jersey, and I will love you forever. I'll just tell you that. Right now.
That's a great one, man.
Or the Bash Brothers. Come on. Goldberg, that'd be a good one too.
Julie the Cat Gaffney.
Goldberg was just. We're talking about the same Goldberg that was just on PMT.
No, not Bill
No,
Goldberg.
that was Goldberg the wrestler. That was the one from Mighty Ducks was the goalie.
Oh, okay.
Recently had the meth problem.
I was like spacing out. I'm like, wait a minute.
Didn't he? Someone's like helping him out now too.
Yeah, he's been to rehab and he's like something like 90
Yeah, I
or
saw
100.
like a recent picture and he's gained like a bunch of weight back.
Yeah, it's good to see stories like that. But definitely those Mighty Ducks jerseys are sick.
All right, for mine, I'm gonna say in the same sport, but the same country as my prior one, and also my third retired organization as well. I'm going to go with the Quebec Nordiques.
Yep, I had a feeling that was coming.
Right there. That is the
awesome.
absolute most electric hockey jersey on the planet.
That is the most Canadian thing I've ever seen.
Oh, for sure. The red igloo, the hockey stick, I forgot what the symbols are called. It's like the Saints logos. You know what I'm talking about. But,
yeah.
I forgot what they're called. But absolute dynamite jersey. Kind of one of those organizations I wish was still around. They ended up becoming the Colorado Avalanche.
100%. I know we have a ton of honorable mention. I'll give a couple of mine in the NFL world. Those, I believe, 70s Patriots uniforms with the Patriot snapping the football. Red ones are good. I love those. And honestly, I don't know, but I like the old Buccaneers, which I think everybody likes, the creamsicles, the original Houston Oilers, and I don't know why, but I kind of like the old Seattle Seahawks in the NFL world.
Outside of the Buccaneers, I like the Broncos. The Denver Broncos is great. Got it that time, Zach. I got the screenshot. We're good to go.
Yeah.
But yeah, Denver Broncos a good one.
Close, but no cigar on the not frozen again.
On what?
You're frozen again.
This is beautiful. I absolutely love it. He's gone. Oh, retro jerseys though. Like, see, the ones that I was thinking too are like the ones that never change, Zach. Like the Yankees. That's a great.
It's hard to do retro jerseys now because they almost wear them like quite a bit.
Right.
Like certain teams, like I said, the Toronto Raptors, they wear them quite a bit.
NBA world, the Charlotte Hornets in the early mid '90s was great. Larry Johnson, Lonzo Mourning, they had a great uni. The white and the teal were both really good. Nuggets were good.
Making retro jerseys like once a year thing because you almost wear them too much.
Oh, I can't get enough of them.
I don't know. It doesn't make it special.
I do like the Bulls with the cursive Chicago script across the chest too. That's always a good one.
I don't know if you guys already said this one, but remember the teal Pistons ones that they wore? Those were good. Those were some of my favorites. Even those ones, TV franchise Rockets ones were good. The Phoenix Suns I liked a lot.
The original red and yellow Rockets were great.
Yep. The 90s Jazz ones, as much as, we despise them for, the NBA Finals, those were cool. I like those ones.
I was saying when you got disconnected, but like teams like the Yankees, the Blackhawks, some of these like classic ones that have just, stayed, those never became retro, but they wore the same ones back like, 50 years. Some of those, just like Penn State, that's just a great football uni in college. USC is probably my favorite college football jersey, and that uni combo. So that red and yellow, the home that they have, dude, that one's sick, dude. The scarlet and gold.
I'm with you. I don't disagree. There's some baseball ones I want to get your guys' take on because these are some of the coolest ones in baseball. Those baby blue Cardinals, those are great throwbacks. I hate the Cardinals. I love those.
The old Padres ones were good in the 80s, the mid 80s.
Yep. The teal Marlins jerseys. What are you guys' thoughts on the Tequila Sunrise Houston Astros jerseys?
I like them.
That's my dad's favorite jersey, and I don't know what they're okay, but I don't know. I see why people don't like them at the same time.
I guess I didn't really realize there were so many jerseys.
Oh, dude,
there's tons, dude. It's crazy.
It's crazy. That's a whole world.
And it's another and now especially baseball teams are wearing like super, super old jerseys, and they'll do like their Negro League days where they'll wear, like Kansas City will wear, a team from the Negro Leagues with another team that had a predominant, like there's so many layers. There's 90s stuff. It goes back so far. Obviously like the Rays having the great year they went and brought back the Devil Rays, the original ones, the purple and yellow and green ones that they wore. It goes super, super deep in almost every league, which is fun to see. So for a guy like me who loves throwbacks, it's awesome.
Love it.
Zach, were there any other ones that you had that we didn't mention yet?
I like the all white Bears jersey. Well, not all white, but the white, like the Walter Payton white jerseys. Old. They're not really like throwbacks in a way, but I think they're cool.
Do you like the new throwbacks that the Bears wear with the stripes on the shoulders?
No.
You don't like those? I think those are some of the better alternative uniforms in football.
I'm not a fan.
No. Is it just because have they
I like the solid color.
Not in them? I know that.
I like to take the solid color.
Okay. I'm with you. I think the Packers
also don't like
the
orange either.
No?
Bad luck.
That's true. See, and I think the Packers have the worst throwback in any sport. Those
it's like a
blue and yellow with the brown pants. Those are the worst things.
Yeah, those are hideous. They're hideous.
Horrible.
The green is just not flattering green.
It's not. There's no green in them. They're blue and yellow.
Oh, I thought that was like a really weird green.
No, they're blue and yellow from back like 1926 before they changed their colors.
That actually makes them a little bit better, I guess, in my eyes, because I thought that was green.
And then they wear brown helmets too with them sometimes. I'm just like,
yeah, it's a weird look. It's a really weird look.
They almost go back too far in time. With their uniforms, we don't have to go back to,
you know what we need to do next, like one other time with jerseys is like best alternates as opposed to like retros. There's some good like color rush or some all like third jerseys or alternate, schemes that some teams have. I don't know. Some of the college ones, like I don't know, like when they go like blackout games and stuff like that, get pretty cool.
Yeah, absolutely. And they'll even do like one-offs for one night. They'll wear,
Oregon. Like give me Oregon every night of the week, dude. It's just awesome. Yeah. They could trot out a different scheme,
Let us know what we missed as far as throwbacks. I know people probably have a ton. My dad's probably going to tell me that we missed the bright yellow Oakland A's. So if you know a throwback jersey that you love that we forgot, make sure you let us know.
The 70s A's, the yellow and the greens, both of them were really good. Just a solid color. Yeah, those were both good.
With just an A right on the left side of the chest. Those were great.
The Brooklyn Dodger with the Brooklyn script across the chest was really good. And the one with the B. The one with the B was really cool too.
We could go on for hours. I love it.
For sure.
All right, boys, that was episode 86. Again, thank you to our guest, Dave Williamson. Make sure you head over to DaveWilliamsonComedy.com to check out all of his work, his socials, listen to his albums on Spotify, check out his YouTube page, his podcast. Thanks again to Dave for coming on. We'll make sure to have him back on at some point. And don't forget the t-shirt giveaway. Share that you're listening to this episode. Share the podcast episode on Facebook. To give us a screenshot that you're listening to it on Apple Podcasts, Spotify for that Victory Monday shirt. Remember, it is an XL, but you got a week. So let us know that you were listening to it, and we will be drawing a winner next week. Shout out to our friends over at 26shirts.com that are the makers of that beautiful t-shirt that we have to give away. Head over to 26shirts.com/Chicago to check out all of their great gear, shirts, hoodies, flags, hats, whatever you need. And it goes to a good cause. So make sure you check out the website. Like I said, 26shirts.com/Chicago. Use promo code Typical Chicago Fans. Let them know that we sent you and save yourself 15% with that promo code. Make sure you subscribe, rate, review on Apple Podcasts. Follow us on Spotify, Spreaker, Google Podcasts, wherever you find them. Make sure you check us out there. Head over to the YouTube page for all of our content in video form. Instagram, Facebook, type in Typical Chicago Fans, like the pages there. on Twitter at typical_Chicago. You can find us just about anywhere. Follow me on Twitter at BoomyTCF, Matt at schools_01, and Zach at ZLiliaTCF. That was episode 86. We love you all.
Peace.
See you.